Well, my name's Mr. Morgan. I'm back again, but I got a goddamn problem. My hair is a damn mess, so I gotta be wearing some hat today. Exactly like this, man. I'm sure if I was in Texas right now, I could find a bigger hat
to fit my fucking big head. Anyway, welcome to the video. As I said, really, my hair is a bit of a mess at the moment. My hairstylist is not around right now. Can't get staff these days. Oh my God, very disappointed. Gonna be giving negative reviews and I need to see their manager ASAP right now. So aside from all of that, what I'm going to be sharing with you today is related to the Dylan Rounds case, the latest information, new developments, ideas and thoughts, as well as a response from Candice Cooley in recent time, okay? Kind of like what we did yesterday, gonna follow on and see what additional stuff has come about and maybe certain responses from other people, whether it's direct or tying on to different ideas, theories and thoughts, okay? Yes, the penguin is here. I couldn't find a hat small enough for his head, so he'll have to have a cold head, which I'm sure he won't be complaining too much about, but I think he's a bit jealous. He wanted a cowboy hat as well, but oh well, maybe for Christmas he can get one. Shout out to Helena as well, if you're watching, because she's been around for a bit now within the different live streams, so I appreciate that. Just a little additional updates. So, certain viewers, in which other viewers might know of, the odd one might have gone a bit quiet or disappeared. One of which, like Rhonda, some of you might know Rhonda. In brief, it was mentioned publicly, but she, in brief, said a bit ill at the moment, on and off. So that's why she's been absent. So I hope she gets better soon. And yeah, let's move on to the Facebook post and share with you the information right now. Right, so here we are on the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page. And as you can see just below is Candice Cooley and a recent post, 6th of September at 22:56, nearly 2300 hours. Now, the reason why I didn't share this with you in my previous video is because it didn't show up in the feed at the time. The dodgy thing about Facebook post and stuff, it seems to be muddled all over the place. You might have the odd pinned post at the top, highlighted post, and then some new and old ones intertwined with one another. A bit silly, isn't it? Nevertheless, let me read this out to you. So Candice Cooley recently stated, "We would like to update everyone on where we are at with getting more help and resources on Dylan's case. Unfortunately, we really have no update. Justin and I met with the BECSO Monday the 29th of August. We were read a press release by Sheriff Potter himself saying they would not relinquish control of Dylan's case but would get assistance from the state of Utah and FBI." So that's kind of interesting. So that's another timeline if you want to throw it in. Monday the 29th of August, Justin and Candice meeting with the BECSO. Now, I personally don't know what that abbreviation is. Is it Baru something? I don't know. As said, in the chat as we go along, you can leave your thoughts, opinions, reactions, and if any corrections need to be made, feel free to do so, or if you want to add to information, feel free. Let me know what BECSO is. As you can see, it does mention about Sheriff Potter as well, and as we know, in recent time, or in a recent post at least, with that photo of Candice being confronted by Sheriff Potter and Sheriff Potter's wife about the case, how things are going, and then obviously the wife stepping in and talking about how she's not too pleased with how the sheriff's department, Box Elder County, have been criticised on Facebook, when, to be honest, they weren't really called out too negatively. I mean, maybe YouTube's more negative towards Box Elder County, and there's valid points to make. But, that behaviour by them just further highlights the unprofessional nature of them and how they go about dealing with the case and interacting with the victims, the family, and so on. So there is that to take in mind. But when we look here, this seems to be a different encounter. Correct me if I'm wrong. It just seems like this happened at a different time, different point. But as it says, we were read a press release by Sheriff Potter himself. And that press release, I guess, is to do with the not relinquishing control of Dylan's case. And as we saw in recent time, like on the news article by ABC4 Utah, maybe that's where it came from, that information, how it connected on to it, about saying how they're not stepping down, they're not going anywhere, they want to keep control, and so on. And like when it came to trying to email the sheriffs or the odd person within the department, they didn't reply back. So yeah, despite those methods, I guess, in recent time, sending out those postcards, trying to reach out to the state of Utah and so on, it's been limited, kind of been suppressed in a way. Maybe not completely, but, it just seems like Box Elder County being very awkward. And as I said, it's saying that there was going to release, but this, as it says a bit further down below, we were told that the statement would be released in a day or two. I assume that means publicly. Well, we are a full week later, and it has not been released. Justin and I feel every time we turn around, we are fed a crumb to silence us. That's an interesting point to make. So the family believe that they're being given the odd bit of information to basically shut them up, keep them quiet. So when the mother or the father complains or demands answers and updates, which is a normal thing, you want to know where you stand and what's going on. And okay, you receive a bit of information, might not be too helpful, might be not too clear or direct, but it's better than nothing. And to be fair, in any given situation, if you are exposed to negative treatment by a certain person or group, at a point in time, if they give back a small positive thing, they show a little bit of respect, or they treat you a little bit better on this occasion, because you're so used to, shit experiences and encounters, that when something small and positive does happen by the hands of those people responsible for causing the trouble in the first place, you tend to be a little bit positive. You tend to quieten down, not complain, when you should still complain, because they're only doing it just to keep you in line, to keep control of you, in a sense. You see what I mean? It's kind of completely off subject, but I'll mention it anyway. Kind of like when a person could be very strict, very nasty, very controlling, hurts somebody physically, psychologically, however, and then when things do backfire, or when they're exposed or something goes on, they end up backing off, crying, apologising at that point, at that second. And then, all's forgiven because they've shown a soft side to them. But that's only like temporary. And then they go back to bad treatment. So that's like how it is with Box Elder County. They'll show maybe a lack of respect to the family, to the case, to Dylan himself, certain evidence. They might be slow at processing things, finding leads, dragging it out, makes the family sweat, makes the family question and doubt themselves, like when they were interviewed and talked to separately. And then here and there, okay, we'll give you a little bit of information, a bit of clarification, just to keep you in line, to keep you happy. So I guess, in a long way of saying it, that is basically what Justin and Candice believe, that they're being fed crumbs to be silenced, which isn't a good thing when it comes to relying on the authority to help you in a case. Anyway, let's continue reading. It then says, Candice says, we are both fully aware that not everything can be released, but in all reality, most of the evidence they have, we were present when it was found, or us as a family found it ourselves. So that's kind of interesting. Now, does she mean that because she was present or family members were present, then whatever information found at that time should be released to the family only? Is that what she means? Or does she mean because she was there, she validated it, saw it, and didn't see too many issues that it should be released public? I go for the first option because, as said, she's only been given so much information and a lot of poor communication. So she probably is thinking, we were at the grain shed when maybe the boots were found, or certain, stuff like the grain truck being looked at, inspected. So we should be informed more in those situations. It makes sense. In my opinion, it does make sense. The bit where it says, it was found, or us as a family found it ourselves. What did the Dylan Rounds family find, if we can be specific? If any of you know, feel free to leave a comment down below or in the chat itself right now. What items were directly found by the family, whether it be by Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, a friend, a brother or sister, whoever is present. What did they find? The boots, bits of clothing, fingerprints, the odd questionable item tool which could have been used, that sort of stuff. Because, the way the police word it, as said in the previous video, they've done monumental task of being involved in the case, spending lots and lots of hours, doing lots of work, putting in lots of effort. And then other people, like the general public, are saying, well, we basically tipped them off. We gave them the information and most of the material for them to work with, and then they could then carry investigations out. So, they didn't do that much. And it kind of goes on from there, a bit of back and forth of who's the most responsible, who's contributed the most. It's kind of like that. It gets a little bit messy at times. You get me? Anyway, let's continue reading. She then says, we are both furious as to how Dylan's case was handled in the beginning. BECSO never even made the public aware he was missing, nor had any intention to. They have never done a press conference, spoken with a reporter, and have only posted on their Facebook 3 times in 3 months about Dylan's case, their last post being July the 7th. And I think that does tie in together because, as you saw, as we looked back retrospectively yesterday at Box Elder County's post, there was only like 3, maybe 4 if you want to include the original profile of Dylan Rounds and what's going on. And that was round about in July. And then after that, when it came to August, when it came to the investigation of James Brenner's burnt down trailer in Montello, Nevada, that wasn't mentioned about at all. Other little developments here and there, whether it be at the hands of Box Elder County themselves messing up, or other sideline things, other investigations, the railroad tracks, Ty Lance, saying, oh, look at this, we've got that, we found this, it could be worth looking at. And Box Elder County not really mentioning much on Facebook itself, because I think the odd deputy or sheriff, someone in the police department, either one or a few, did go down to check or investigate, but nothing was publicly stated, no official records of that investigation. Even if it's a sub one, a small scale operation, it should still be monitored, as like a checklist, so people are publicly aware of, where things stand and so on. So yeah, that does seem to tie in line. The bit about the press conference, yeah, there hasn't been one, and there has, with other missing people out there in different states. The question I have, and it kind of ties in with not yesterday's video, but the one before it, where I was questioning Box Elder County, giving different theories and key unanswered questions. And one of them was, has anyone else had bad negative experiences when dealing with Box Elder County if you've had trouble? You needed justice, a person that went missing in your family and you reached out to Box Elder County. How did they treat that case? How did they treat your situation, whatever it is, you know? And if it's like been negative, where across many different people, then, it's not looking too good, is it? And it makes them look more corrupt, Box Elder County, and more incompetent. And tying it in, like with what I said, with the lack of press conferences, none at all. Has this been the case in the past with other people, with other missing people within Montello, Lucin? That's a big question. If it's something like other people, whether it be people watching my video right now or in the future, you come along and you've had a bad experience with Box Elder County in which they have not, done any press conferences with you or about the case you're dealing with. They've done nothing, just like Dylan Rounds. Feel free to leave a comment down below, even if it's brief, because then it could help reveal more about the police department. And the way I see it, if it turned out as if they have done press conferences in the past and they have treated other cases with a bit more respect, detail and attention, then it makes the Dylan Rounds case even more suspicious, because it's like, if you do a good job with everybody else but that one missing 19, 20-year-old missing person, Dylan Rounds, it makes you think, does Box Elder County have a hand in the case and the outcome of him? Because why solve everything else and do a good performance, and yet on this occasion you don't do public stuff, public conferences, public interviews? Is it because you're hiding something? So it goes one of two ways. Either one, no press conferences with other people and other missing people in the past, same as like right now. So then that would mean they're just plain incompetent and not that good at doing the job. But the second option is, if they have done press conferences in the past but not on this occasion, then it makes you wonder, are they hiding something and they don't want too much attention on the case? So they're the different ways of looking at it. Is there anything else I missed in between? So the same fact how Candice and Justin are furious, the way the case has been handled from the very beginning. And, we have seen that, the way the boots were just chucked in the truck, the way they were told, good luck when you go to Montello, if you're trying to look for Dylan, if he's held hostage, at the time at least. And yet they just seemed very casual about it, not stepping in, not rushing, no urgency, just like delaying the arrest of Jim Brenner and so on, despite him being a dangerous person. So it is very telling how things have gone, and it's just built over time, along with the frustration and anger within the family, which does make sense. The bit about, though, where it says the BECSO never even made the public aware he was missing, nor had any intention, does sound very dodgy. Alongside with not doing a press conference, it just seems very weird how they didn't even tell the general public that he was missing. Now, I'm sure the word would have spread around, by family members, friends of friends, and that's spreading online, social media, etc., etc. It would have got around anyway. But the question I have is, when it says they never even made an attempt, when it comes to telling the public, if you knew that back then you wouldn't be expecting press conferences whatsoever. If they can't be bothered to tell the public, then they'll definitely not going to be bothered to do a press conference or an update public either in the future. So I guess it depends how you set your expectations when it comes to this stuff. Now, just a quick thought, because you might have already corrected me earlier on in the video when I asked the question, but does BECSO mean Box Elder County Sheriff's Office? I just thought of it on the spot. Maybe that is the case. Yeah. But yeah, very weird. And just once again, I just want to further point out, because it's a bold point and it's an important one, is do they not want to tell the public? They don't feel encouraged, Box Elder County, because for some reason they're caught up in it, directly or indirectly, such as a certain criminal suspect. They don't want to arrest the person. I know James Brenner is already in jail. There could be ties there, unless he might be falsely accused, if we're going down that line. If you've got police corruption and criminals out there who are caught up in the case, who also have ties with the police right now, or at least in the past, the police might try and do everything possible to make sure that those specific criminals they know of don't go down, because if they go down, they may take the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office down with them if there's corruption. So they strike a deal, negotiate in between, and say, you know what, you criminals, we can't, put you down, take you into jail, because it would expose us. So as a compromise, let's put the blame on another ex-criminal. Let's call it that. Person with criminal backstory, extensive negative violent history, such as James Brenner. He's the perfect match for the likes of Dylan Rounds, and so on. Now, I'm not saying that the police put the boots there of Dylan's near, kind of near to Brenner's trailer to make it look like he was responsible. I'm not saying that. Maybe some of you might think that. That's okay. But I wouldn't say that myself. There's a possibility that maybe another individual put the boots there to try and frame James Brenner to cover their own backs, maybe. If they were prepared, plan things. It's one of those things, is time will tell, because whilst Jim Brenner, is in jail, the odd few developments made, and maybe the odd interrogation and that polygraph test and him failing it, depending what it's about. If it's just about the gun charges, then it's kind of unrelated. But if it was to do with Dylan, as said, the polygraph test, and he failed it, then that does make him much more suspicious. So it's just about getting the balance and understanding where things are at right now, because things can change very quickly, okay? So let's continue on where we are. I'll just read roughly. They've never done a press conference, spoken with a reporter, have only posted, July 7th. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's it for this one. Is there any comments? Not really. These just supportive ones. So that is what Candice had to say, 6th of September, bordering on to the 7th. Now, a bit further on up, a more recent, 18 hours ago, a guy called Russ Langfett gave a few opinions of himself, I believe. And I'll just read it out to you now. So Russ says, I don't know why this thought keeps coming to mind, but I decided to share it, even if I'm way off. As a retired truck driver, I became involved in Truckers Against Trafficking. Okay, so trafficking people. He says, I live in Washington and have been reading a lot about the kidnappings going on around the area. 1 to 5 is a major trafficking highway, and I recently read of a string of young boys going missing up north of here, near the Olympia area. That's kind of interesting that, okay, so he's got his own experience with trucking. He might have seen things going on in the past or heard stories of other truckers and what they came across. This is a key area because this is one of the theories that has been circulating with time. I don't know who came up with it first, but the general term of trafficking, and to be fair, I brought it up myself previously in a past video of mine when I was looking at the dark side of the Wadsworth brothers who were caught up with, inappropriate behaviour and, all that towards younger people. And, with like kind of recent, well, not exactly recent now, but the news within the Dylan Rounds case about Montello being a hotspot for dodgy people, dodgy touchers, and at one point, that report by Doug, who hyperventilated himself and exaggerated, and then Salty Pancakes came in as well, clearing things up a little bit about the odd sheriff or police guy turning up in Montello at the mail office and asking for, I guess, directions to where the person who's committed a crime is, and then arrested, kicked down the doors within the neighbourhood because of inappropriate behaviour towards younger people. You tie it in with other people like, as I said, the Wadsworth brothers and how they've been in the past, and maybe many others out there right now. It all ties in with that question of, are there other missing people out there within Montello or the outskirts? And if so, could it be because they've been kidnapped and it's gone on to trafficking? The area itself, there's a lot of containers, storage containers out and about, scattered. Someone could be held captive in there, held hostage, locked up, forgotten about, I don't know. And then you've got other trailers for trucks that are parked up, I guess, within Montello. You might have the odd business, you might have the odd outpost, trading place, parking spot where people might take turns, people wait, park up, I don't know. I'm not an expert when it comes to that stuff, but you get what I'm saying. And you got criminals out there taking advantage of vulnerable people, no matter the age, because, there's all different factors to take in mind. They get kidnapped and then taken somewhere, and then it's like, where do they get taken to? And for some reason, I'm just going to throw in a very quick point because we can look into this deeper later. Is there any possible ties with trafficking and Lucin Airport? You know what I'm saying? So some people get kidnapped, put into a truck trailer, driven to Lucin Airport, and then just stuffed into the back of the plane or wherever, and then fly off to maybe a different state. I don't know if they could go to a different country. I'm not sure what their planes are like, if they can cover that distance. But you get what I'm saying, moving about. I mean, you do have, is it a lake? Is it a river? An ocean? I can't remember. Towards Salt Lake City, is it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you've got all these different forms of transportation and getting about in a quiet area where you're mostly undetected and can get away with it and, hide in the shadows whilst doing all this crime up to a certain length of time, then, they'll probably take advantage of that, just like how they do with the people they're targeting. And like with what Russ is stating with his own experience and ideas, could Dylan have been caught up in that? Directly, indirectly? Did Dylan show up at the wrong place at the wrong time? Did he witness something and then he was silenced himself? I mean, this is the thing. He is 19 years of age when he went missing. Supposedly 5'10" to 6 foot, 145 pounds, even though it should be probably about 160. He's not too vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? I guess he can handle himself. He works on a farm, somewhat healthy, somewhat strong mindset at least. But I guess with living in the middle of nowhere, not many people around who know him, like living nearby as like friends, proper friends, he's restricted, he's limited. If anything bad does happen, who can he reach out to, who's nearby, who can show up immediately? I don't really know. Could it be Kurt Wadsworth? But if Kurt Wadsworth is somehow linked within the disappearance of Dylan Rounds, then I can't imagine Kurt showing up to help Dylan if Dylan was in trouble at that time. You know, if one of his guys, contacts, brothers came in at the same time, like, yeah, I think things could get a bit complex and messy. There's many layers within the case and many people that could be associated with one thing or another. So, you know, it just takes time to process it all. But nevertheless, let's continue on with what Russ Langfett has to say. So, as you see here, following on from where it says near the Olympia area, and also, whilst reading this, with it being, mentioning about certain highways and, about it being up north near Olympia area, maybe you could do a map analysis, maybe, to get an idea of what the place looks like visually from an aerial viewpoint. And then if you got the odd investigator or the police themselves, even though it sounds a bit of a joke saying that, is it worth gathering any resources or focus into this area presented by what this guy's saying on screen? Whether it be directly for Dylan Rounds or other missing people. You know, you might go off the path looking for Dylan, but everyone else interprets it as not looking for Dylan because it's unrelated. Different crime, different case, different people. But when you find a clue or find someone, it might actually link and lead back to finding Dylan, you know? Because like with Kenny Veach and the M Cave, okay, it was like, where is Kenny Veach? Where is the M Cave? Some people looking for one, other people looking for the other. But the way I saw it was, if you're trying to find Kenny Veach, you know, he's the one who has the answer to the location of the M Cave, supposedly. So if you find Kenny, you'll find the cave. But if you reverse it, you're looking for the M Cave, you might find Kenny at that spot where he disappeared. So one way or another, it can tie back together. So maybe the same happens here. You never know. Anyway, let's continue. So the guy on here, this trucker, states, well, the thought struck me that any interstate is susceptible to it, and it's young men and women who are usually the targets, drugged up and forced into that trade. If the sheriff isn't helping, maybe they're involved. Leave no stone unturned. Very critical point and key question to raise, as I said earlier, as you heard me, the corruption with the police, tied up with a certain suspect, criminal, organisation, gang. I brought up the point, could it be to do with the gun trading, gun carrying, the drugs trade? But if there is trafficking, which there seems to be from what's been said here, maybe the police are caught up in that as well. If they can benefit financially, then, you know, they will get involved and turn the other way and give a blind eye, however you word it. So, yeah, key question. As said in the chat, leave your thoughts down below. Do you think trafficking is directly linked and associated to Dylan Rounds? Or could it just at least explain to why there might be other missing people out there? And also, do you think that the police are caught up in it with the whole trafficking? Anyway, let's continue. In Florida, they just busted cops, including a chief, who were involved in trafficking. Maybe the law enforcement involved needs to be looked at. If you want to do a crime and get away with it, do it right under their noses, as the saying goes. Well, law enforcement has that capability. I would ask the FBI to investigate them as well, since they don't seem to really care and aren't doing what they need to do, hiding something. Fair points. Sucks to think like this if you want to believe in the goodness of those who have signed on to do that good work. Unfortunately, in today's world, they need to be looked at as well. Justice for Dylan is out there. Somebody knows something and have a strong connection protecting that. Who does the county law enforcement entangle themselves with when they're not under the badge? Yeah. Any comments? Not not too much to be said there. But yeah, that's an interesting point and observation made by Russ. Different angle and perspective of the outcome of Dylan and how it could be tied up and associated with other people out there and other victims too. And lastly, there seems to be this post by Finch Fam 11 hours ago. I'll read it out to you. It says, former FBI profiler Clint Van Zant, quote, motive is important because without an understanding of why people commit certain crimes in the way they do, we are left to begin at square one on every investigation, something we simply don't have the time or the resources to do. And then Finch goes on to say, what possible motives exist in the case for Dylan to be missing? So I don't know if this Clint Van Zant is tied or talking, referring to the Dylan Rounds case, or is this just an old extract, an old quote, and just relaying it on because it's kind of relevant? Leave your thoughts down below because it can be interpreted in different ways. But in summary, if there's a certain suspect criminal out there, whether they've been found or not, and there's no real explanation, there's no energy, there is no reason, there's nothing at all to what would explain the actions and the outcome of a bad event, and it's like, well, we just don't have the time for it. You know, we need to be only covering cases where there is a motive. That doesn't really sound that helpful. I mean, I can understand the whole thing about resources and time efficiency, but what happens to those cases where there doesn't seem to be an established motive? Do they just get forgotten about? Or do they just get put to the back of the line? So all the important cases and the ones with better explanations, once they're solved, then they eventually get back to these, lesser important ones. Is that how it goes? I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm not from the US, so I wouldn't know. But there seems to be, I guess, hierarchy and pick and choose what is what and when to do what and so on. Leave your thoughts down below. As for Dylan, there's numerous motives. So, if this was being slanted at Dylan's case that, there's no motives for Dylan to go missing and it's just a pure mystery, there are motives, though. Financial motives. If someone like James Brenner, Chase Venstra, Don Hatley, Kurt Wadsworth affiliates, the militia, people of Montello heard about Dylan and him getting that check in recent time, or whenever it was, the $33,000 check. And, at the time, maybe in the bar talking about it, or it was brought up over a conversation on the phone and someone eavesdropped it, maybe. They might have gone back to Dylan's farm at the time, looking for the money. There was a confrontation, a scuffle. Dylan's like, oh, what are you doing? And then they get into a fight, or the other person tries to silence Dylan and shoots him with his own gun or their gun and then runs away. See, financial motive to why they did it. Desperate for money. People in Montello may be struggling, may need to fuel and feed their drug addiction, or they might be in debt and owe money to someone. We saw it with James Brenner taking a gun, a .22 caliber rifle, from a trailer or a property nearby because they owed James Brenner money. So you see all the links. People desperate for money will do desperate things, and criminal behaviour can come about, especially in an area like that where there's less policing and there's already criminal activity and reoffending. It all makes sense. And if there is a kind of vulnerable person, fairly young, living by themselves in the middle of nowhere, hardly any witnesses, knows that he's got money, they're going to do something, right? There's a motive. Check. What about another motive? What about confrontation, conflict, a grudge? That can happen. Don Hatley had a falling out with Dylan over a washing machine. Don Hatley was fired shortly afterwards, from what has been said previously. Don Hatley out of work, maybe struggling for money, maybe not, but is a bit annoyed, frustrated how a 19-year-old talked down to him at the time and fired him. That grudge can be held. James Brenner, confrontation with Dylan, whether it be the gate, who's locking it, it needs to be opened, because supposedly James Brenner is the gatekeeper, the caretaker of the land or the grain shed. So if he controls who comes in and who comes out of that gate, maybe Dylan wanted to get in, but Brenner was being awkward, so he had a bit of a falling out there. Or at a later point, there was another falling out, and James Brenner didn't like the fact of a younger person talking down to him. They didn't like that power dynamic, so they got revenge. I mean, there's already been work disputes and lack of control in the past with the Maryland shooting of James Brenner, where he shot someone fatally because of a work dispute, falling out, disagreement. So same could have happened again. The idea of a grudge conflict. That's another motive. Another motive would be Dylan coming across Chase Venstra after Chase running through the desert, bloodied, possibly escaping the militia. Okay, information's revealed. Dylan hears about it, goes on to report it maybe directly, immediately, or at a later point. The militia know, find out in some way, and then silence Dylan because he knows too much and he was going to expose them. So they had to dispose of him. So that's another motive, being silenced because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. You see, you hear something you're not supposed to, and then you report it, you become a target. So that's another motive. Okay, they're not set in stone, they're not cemented and concrete, but there are possibilities, and endless ones to say the least, and a range of different criminals and people. So you can't say there's no motives. There is. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, some interesting points mentioned and theories. Who knows what, new developments will come about. I'm sure there'll be something soon. Now, if you've just joined or recently joined, you're wondering, why have I got a hat on, It's because my hair is a complete mess right now, Got to cover it, conceal. Oh my God, it's all about concealing. So hopefully that explains that. Now, what next? Well, it depends what happens next, obviously. If there is other developments, new things coming about, more relevant, new up-to-date stuff, I'll look into that. I'll talk about it, cover it, relay it, break down, analyse it, debunk, whatever, like I've done beforehand. If not, I guess the next thing to be looking at could be one of two things, either the highway or the area where those trucks pass through, about the whole trafficking thing. Have a look at that, okay? Or, /and, to tie it in, I could look at Luton Airport, like the backstory behind it, because there is some articles out there. So get an understanding of what it's like, what it used to be, the history of it, whatever. And then maybe do back in time on it as well, if I haven't already. And, stuff like that. Actually, I think I might have done a time travel one of that within my Luton video, so you can look back at that if you want. Because with certain theories they can tie on to locations as well, and with those locations they could reveal evidence, and with that evidence could lead to a conviction. So it's like a chain effect at times, you never know. As for other recommendations of covering stuff, I know the odd person has said we need to look back. I don't know what it was quite about, but just by the title of Pancake's videos, I think he called it recently in a live stream, Dylan Round's Case Reboot or something. I guess it might be taking a look at it from a different angle perspective, or literally going back to the beginning to understand what's happened. Because this is the thing, when it comes to cases and mysteries, you've got to return back to the source. You've got to return back because something might have been missed. Even if it's the smallest of points. It could be some wording, some language, coordinates, a date, a time, whatever it might be. It could be a penguin that shows up at some point, and it's like, what is this all about? What's the meaning of this? The significance? Does it link? Is there a chain reaction? Was this the turning point to why this happened and that led to that? If you've got like the mystery of the missing fish, you're looking for your fish. You don't know where it is. You want to eat it, but it's no longer there. a tear might come from your eye, maybe. And it's like, what do? I need to look back. When was it I put it in the oven to cook or on the pan? Oh, it was that time. What happened shortly afterwards? Oh, I had to go here, I had to go there because I got distracted. Was there anyone else present nearby? Maybe there was a penguin, and then you just move on and move on. And then it's like, oh, we're at a dead end. Let's look back. Was there anything I brushed over quickly? The penguin. There was a penguin in the room nearby who waddled along. How do they walk, penguins? Is it like that? Waddled along like this and saw the fish and then took it like that, probably eating it. And then you look back to that and you think, that's the key point. That's something that has been overlooked. That could reveal the outcome of where the fish is in the stomach, like that. Can I try and throw one there? Shit, I forgot about the ceiling. Never mind. I want to try and get on the table, but I failed. Oh well. So with the Dylan Brown's case, yes, there might be something that might have been overlooked at a point in time. So I guess can look back. When it comes to certain things, though, doesn't seem to be in a direct order. I know people were talking about doing a timeline. It makes sense. It's a good thing to do. I definitely did it when it came to the Kenny Veach case, but I had more time to look over it. And the information, in a way, wasn't as deep, and there wasn't as many suspects. It was either Kenny, the family, military, or a serial killer, or debt collector or something. Whereas with the Dylan Brown's case, several people, then several people tied to them, then other people tied to that, other crimes going on, all kinds of things going on. Police corruption as well. There's a lot to look at, and different times and dates of with Dylan himself, but then the timeline of the criminals and suspects, then the timeline of the investigation itself, and the timeline of evidence found, and the timeline of locations. There's a lot. Now, I don't know at some point if like one was to do that, would it be best doing it as an overall timeline of everything, or is it easier to do a timeline of one topic than the other? So a timeline of Dylan, a timeline of investigations, and then a timeline of the suspects, what they were doing. That could help, to be honest, if you was able to gather all the information together and bullet point it. But in my opinion, at this moment in time, it just seems very complex. It sounds a bit silly saying that, but it does sound very complex because all the information is scattered around on Facebook, maybe Reddit, on the web sleuth thing, on YouTube. Not everything's noted down. Some things have just said vocally. So it would probably take quite a while, to be fair. Unless you can find small-scale summarised timelines broken up, and you just piece it all together that way, then that would be more time efficient, maybe. But it's just a thought. And as well, the only counterpoint I have towards the whole timeline thing is, yes, it helps establish the case and what's happened, what's going on. But as we know, information switches and changes back and forth. 1 minute it's this, next minute it's that. And then suddenly there's a big U-turn, next minute there's a big twist in the case. Oh, now that's invalid. Oh, that person was never a part of the case. So just imagine if you put all that time and effort into doing a timeline, including Chase Venstra and everything about him, and then the police come in or the family say, oh, Chase Venstra was never a part of the investigation. You can rule him out, or this person's cleared. You can take them away. And it's like, well, that was a waste of time. So with all these sudden changes and sharp turns, it's best just to hold on and wait. You can still look at other stuff and investigate, but the whole timeline thing just seems a bit too deep in depth. It would have made more sense for someone, like even if it's authorities, I don't know, detectives, to do a timeline at the very beginning and then add to it throughout the investigation as things come about, and then just add this point and add that point. But that didn't happen from the looks of it. It's very fragmented. So we'll see how things go. And yeah, as I said, you can leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you have additional info, theories, ideas, questions, or anything like that, feel free to leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video, whenever that is, and yeah, goodbye.